What do you think? I think you're up, bud.
Yep, we're ready. We're rolling. Sorry, I was letting it roll twice because we usually have an ad on the front side. We're still learning some of this YouTube stuff.
You want me to roll
Guys,
it again? I can roll open again if you want to, because it's really good open, and I know he spent a lot of time on it.
man, it's good, but let's get down to the nitty gritty. Meteorologist Brett Adair, along with meteorologist David Neal here. We wanted to come in and basically have a discussion tonight about the events that took place late last week into the weekend with severe weather across the southern plains, and we're also going to be talking about a tropical system that could be impacting us going into November along the East Coast.
Every once in a while we get in these situations where we run into severe storms, and especially when they're well out to the west like that, and you think you just forget the calendar, and you look at the calendar, and in my mind, it's always been buzzed in June 1, November 30. June 1, November 30. Well, I forgot it wasn't November 30 yet. So, yeah, we're going to be looking down just out of the Caribbean at the moment. The satellite imagery is looking a little bit ominous down there with a big curl going on, and the National Hurricane Center is watching that, and all forecasts. There's pretty much an agreement now on a lot of the forecasting models, Brett.
Yeah, and we've been watching that all evening. Invest 98 there off the East Coast. The Hurricane Center's got high probabilities of development. We're going to get into that in just a little bit, but we're going to go back and talk a little bit about Friday now. And David has been spending some time this evening on some analysis here. He's got the radar pulled up basically from November the 4th of the events that took place out in southern Texas. I'm going to let him give you a little bit of a breakdown in terms of the radar here and what we did some live coverage that day and went in detail with what might happen and kind of go into it, David, in terms of what actually transpired.
Well, first of all, what you're seeing is earlier in the day today, and I did put the times up there. Let me go full screen with the radar here if I can and show you the timing here. This was 3 o'clock into the afternoon, 11 o'clock in the morning. This is the Dallas, the FWS radar, and this is when Brett and I really started to watch what was going on very closely when it was all coming in and moving across the area there. We were very concerned about what was going to go on. And rightfully so. We had all of the ingredients that you would look for when that sort of deal goes down. You sort of look for spin. You look for some of the heights, what the wind is doing with height. Is you going up? Are we having different directions? What are we having? A lot of the modeling was suggesting that. So again, we went through 10 p.m. On the radar imagery there, but just to show you as we moved along, much of it kept going on to the east, and then we began to start to see in the velocity data some inbound and outbound markers that were showing up, coming up from the south. Again, this is FWS 3 o'clock, and that's when you'll notice some of that, especially down to the south there, Brett, on 45. We started to see some turning, and that was one right there that went right on by just south of I-20 that ended up being a hitch point we were looking at. It moved just to the east of where you were in Sulphur Springs, though.
Yeah, David, it did. We started the day out earlier. We actually went all the way into the metro area. We were talking, went near Plano and watched some of those storms start to evolve and develop there just to make sure that the metro area didn't deal with any type of a significant tornado threat. And luckily, that didn't transpire. There were several severe thunderstorm warnings with some gusty winds, but the storms really got going south of town, the isolated development that we were looking for. And then there was even some isolated stuff up toward the Red River. It was a little bit more messy there early on, but those storms went into rotation really quickly. The low level shear was much better in that area. And as we noticed, those storms down along I-45 there, east of Waco, moving up to the south side, southwest of Tyler, Texas, Canton. And then I believe we were in Kaufman County is the storm that we noted that started really getting its act together. It merged with a storm and went through a messy cycle there as it crossed I-20. But as it moved up toward the north and east, at that point, we started seeing real signs of tornado development there as we got into that Sulphur Springs area. We decided to move northward up toward the Red River, up toward I-30, where that better wind shear was in the afternoon. So as David and I are rolling through the radar here, you can see that big cell there on the east side of Dallas. That is the one that went up towards Sulphur Springs there, just to the southwest off the lake. I can't remember the name of that lake there to save my life, but that's where it started to spin up east side of the lake. We had a tornado touchdown there just west of Emory and southwest of Sulphur Springs. And we actually put the drone up because that was going to be our best visual with these storms as they started to move 45, 50 miles per hour rather quickly off toward the north and east. We put the drone up there. If we got that video, David, let's see if we can't take that possibly. Okay, here's the drone video. So if we can, right there to the right, straight in the center of your screen, you see a large, beefy wall cloud. Well, guess what? On the far left side, underneath David's head right there, that's a tornado on the
Yeah.
ground. That is actually a drill bit type tornado right below David there. That is on the ground. I can crop in and show you a better picture of that. And we've got that video on our YouTube channel if you want to watch. But we were paying attention to that big beefy monster wall cloud right there in the center of the frame, because typically that's where you're going to see something serious
Yeah.
develop. That's what we call a handoff. And David, you could probably break this down a little bit better. It actually looks like the southern flank's beginning to gust out where that tornado spun up.
Well, you can see, and you can see that as the clouds moving from left to right really rapidly in front of you here, and then the wall cloud. Look at it sucking up all that air on the east side, on the right side of that. And yeah, I'd have thought for sure that's where it was all going to go down right there. And there was a lot of turbulence on the southern side of that as well. But what a classic wall cloud when you look at that. And I don't know what you can see, Brett. Your drone that you're looking at this, is it really a small output that you're looking at there? I mean, would it?
No, I mean I've got a 5-6 inch screen that I'm looking at, and I can see this whole thing.
So it
now
was
in
your
terms
fault
of
then. I
it was my fault.
was gonna blame the
It,
drone, but it was basically your fault for not looking left.
it was my fault for not look. Actually, I had Bryce Shelton was with me in the back seat, and I was looking at the drone, and I told him, I said, "Man, we got to watch. That looks like a satellite tornado to the left." And he started keying in on it, and he saw it. I think he zoomed in on his iPhone, and he saw it, and he was like, "Oh man, that is a tornado." And by that time, it was really starting to lift. I thought that big beefy, we saw that huge cloud of ground lightning stroke there in the center of the wall cloud. But yeah, there it's looping again right there to the left.
Yeah.
That's a tornado. That's a nice little tornado, but it's at a distance.
Did that
And
cause any damage that you know of?
yes, I think that actually is EF2. There's prelims that are still coming out in this area. I think it did EF2 damage down there. It did some pretty good damage to a couple of homes in the area. So yeah, I dropped the ball there, guys. And it happens sometimes. But again, when you're looking at what you're seeing in the center of the screen right there, that just looks so ominous, and you're visibly watching that rotate. We had that on the live stream from the dash camera as well. You could see all the scud really just blowing up. I mean, it's just incredibly impressive, what you can see transpire right in front of you.
All right, I know you don't think I'm very good at this, and I'm not, but while you were talking, I did this. Let's see if I can refresh it. I sort of zoomed in on it there a little bit.
Yeah, to the left, right there underneath your head, there's the
Yeah.
tornado. You can see it pretty well right there as I zoom in. And see, you can actually see the inflow scud sucking in on the right side of that, way back there in the back. There was some rain that was blocking it. But yeah, you can see it right there. That makes me sick. Such an occlusion that took place. But again, we were watching the beefy one. That one we thought had the potential to put down a big, long track type tornado that we'd been seeing most of the day across areas of North Texas along the Red River, with shear that was getting better and better throughout the time period. But again, we missed that one, and I won't lie. But I will say this: we got redemption a little bit later, and we'll
Yeah.
talk about that in a moment. But this structure, though, that is some top tier structure for a supercell any time of the year at any place.
So let's talk, if we want to, let's move along a little bit and go and look at this video and maybe hear some of it too. I think we can.
Yeah, I
'Cause
hope our audio is still rolling here. I think it is. Yeah, I think our audio is rolling, but that's the audio for the actual video there, Dave, the media source audio. But yeah, so later into the overnight hours, we had a big tornado that ended up crossing Interstate 30 there at New Boston. And that ended up being a big tornado.
Good
did
God.
a lot of damage to the southwest of town, but we were positioned on the interstate system there to be able to see this bad boy come across. And that was one of the supercells down there. It was not the supercell that was through Sulphur Springs. That one went to the west, actually actually produced the Big Idabel tornado.
Wow.
But that tornado
What a
itself
pull.
was another one that was rated preliminary EF2. I think they're still looking at some stuff. But we actually saw some slabs down there to the southwest of me, where that storm, cranked up and really just did lots and lots of damage. So there were several supercell tracks along track and numerous tornadoes from each of these individual supercells.
Where's this?
So that's New Boston. That's just southwest of town. Um, it's along one of the county roads there in 98. And we watched, that's basically, we watched from the drone before it got very close to us on I-30 um, as a large stovepipe type tornado. And we were watching it. It was probably in this area, just tremendous power flashes with debris on each side of it. And believe it or not, we could see that at night because of the way that the lightning and power flashes were illuminating this thing. So it's interesting, David. This type of damage here, I think that would have given it an EF2 type rating. Depending on how well built those homes are there,
Yeah.
I would say that's probably a pretty good EF2 type tornado. You can see here as we're looking down into one of those homes that, especially on the northeast side of it, did tremendous damage. You could tell that some of these were suction vortices on this tornado, or either multiple vortices that hit, portions of the area, and it wasn't a solid track the whole time. So there was definitely some changes with the structure of this tornado as it went on its path. But you can see debris scattered everywhere. This is to the northeast again there, just southwest of the downtown area of New Boston, headed up toward I-30. Is where a lot of this really bad damage took place.
Let me see if I can back the radar up here. I've got some archived radar just on my iPad here that we'll look at. See if we can take a closer look at that whole deal. That was going to be about almost 8 o'clock, it looks like, as far as
Right.
radar is concerned. Let me see if I can bring this up where we can sort of talk about this at the moment, because most of what you're seeing now, this all happened on Friday night. Much of it that you see is the video that Brett took the next day. But I'm gonna go one more. Let's see. I'm gonna go one more piece of drone footage here, and then I'll try to
Okay.
find this stuff on the radar.
You can see here. Well, you could see there, but this is going to be actually, this is down into Cason. This is an interesting piece of footage here. This home was completely slabbed, right? You see the home blown to the northeast with the tornado, basically the direction it was moving. And that indicates pretty serious damage there. We got down. Oh man, look, there's a puppy there in the
Oh,
damage right there on the northwest side of the screen, the upper left. And I was worried about that. Somebody pointed that out on one of my screenshots there. I had posted it to social media, and I had to go back, man. I was digging through the video because I didn't even notice it at that point in time. It made me feel really bad. And
because you know
the
I'd have took
dog
it.
was, yeah, well, there was a truck at the property there too,
Okay.
and the dog was fine. You're going to see in this next image, looking down at the roof of the house, and I start moving back toward the puppy here, and you can see him. He starts looking at the drone,
Oh,
so he's moving around. He's good. We just wanted to make sure that he was okay. Obviously, quite confused, but again, this home was just completely decimated right there. And again, there's the pup. But one thing that we noticed, you're going to see in this next little piece of footage here, you can see that there's no anchor bolting to this slab. That is a toenail 2x4 that was toenailed down to the corner of the slab. So basically, the roof came off this house, and it pretty much is still intact off to the northeast. But when the roof came off, the wind blew all the walls out. And since they're not properly attached, it allowed the house to come completely unhinged from the foundation, blown to the northeast. You can see there's a very wide view of it. And, that was one of the more intense areas of damage that we saw. But we've got another piece of damage here that we're going to show here in just a second that gives you more scope. I'm curious to see if this tornado gets a more intense rating due to this next segment of damage that's coming up that was along Highway 49 right here, east of Mount Moriah Church. That's a brick home that is completely gone. And it's swept off to the northeast as well. You can see there's some bricks that are left there, but there's nothing left of that house. It's all swept, and the trees there are pretty chewed up. There was a gentleman in this house that was actually blown into the pasture back there and was pulled out, and a ambulance was flagged down by a storm chaser just after this tornado hit this house. And if you look at these images, it makes you wonder, how can anybody survive that?
Yeah.
How can anybody survive that? So we'll let it continue through this, because that's not the only home that is in this area. And I think the next shot's going to show you that. There's a home that's literally next door to it that was also brick gone. So you got two damage indicators there of brick structures completely gone and decimated. So it's going to be interesting to see. I haven't looked at the DAT points to see what the Weather Service has actually rated this, but look at that truck. That truck, you
It's
think you could have
bad.
survived in that, Dave?
No.
Hood's completely gone. I mean, if you were inside that thing, talk about a ride. Talk about a ride.
I've been in something similar, but not exactly like that.
Yeah, I think you had a nice instance, April 2011, around here
Oh,
somewhere.
a while
But
back, yeah.
yeah, a little time back. But
Yeah, I'm not afraid to talk about it anymore. I got hit by a tornado, folks. I'm the guy who's normally on there telling you stay away, stay away, stay away without any information. And I was working out at the time. Brett was out. We all stay in touch. But for a brief moment, I was by myself and I didn't have a navigator. And that was dumb. That was dumb of me. When the tornado hit Tuscaloosa, the big tornado down there, we lost cell service, and I lost 2 scans of radar, and that was it that I lost. But I didn't really know what was happening at the time, and I ended up there on the western side of Birmingham and had quite a bit of damage. Now, the people who were there, I happened to get out, and the people who were coming out of their homes there in that area, it was amazing to me, Brett, because I did see some of this kind of stuff, and it is. One woman lived in her bathtub. The house next door might be wooden. It was made in the 1950s here in this particular part of town where I was at, and it survives. So there's no rhyme or reason to where some of this stuff does some crazy things, and we sort of see that. Now, this is the radar, Brad. I went back to get the radar to show you some of these things that you were looking at or talking about overall. You can see these tornadoes that are coming in. This one came through Gilmer. You were there at one time. I don't really know. You were so many places, Brett. Your GPS. I think the government probably want to talk to you because your GPS was about 10 miles behind you. And
yeah, it was problematic.
You totally outran your GPS. But anyway, that was one that was coming into Gilmer at about the same time this one came into Omaha, Naples area, and I know you were on 20 at that point. 30.
So let's do something, David. Have you got the ability, that tornado that's up near Naples, reverse that imagery some, go backwards in time there. I'm going to give you an idea of those brick homes that we just looked at. I'm going to show you where they were at, because that's the tornado that hit those brick homes. Back it up further than that, and let's zoom in there, southwest of Pittsburgh. Let's zoom in a little bit there. All right, let's see here. Tell you what, let me pull my radar up too, just so that I can get my location bearing straight for this, because I want to. I think Cason area is in Morris County, which is just south of New Boston, the Bowie County area. Let me get you.
What's more Texas than Bowie County?
Right. No doubt about that.
Bowie County, I've always known how to pronounce that. A lot of young people will call it Bowie County because of David Bowie. There's nothing more Texan than Bowie.
Zoom in right there to right there west of Dangerfield, David. You see Pittsburgh and Dangerfield right there. See Cason, that little town to the northeast in between them on 11? You can
Yes.
see that up there on 11. Okay, let's center it up on casing right there. Right. Let's center it up on casing right there. And it's you see 49 right up there to the northeast of Casing, right? That's on
Yeah.
the northeast side of town.
Right here.
All right. That's where right there where that 49's at is about where those brick homes were located. Let's try to center that up a little bit. Look at the rotational couplet as it comes across that area. We were watching this. I was in New Boston at that point in time. You could see the radar's having some trouble de-leasing the data there because there's such strong inbound and outbound winds that are going on at that time, giving us a very, ominous signal that we're dealing with some problems in that region. But that is the velocity image as that tornado went through Cason, um, the area down just to the south of town. There's where we saw that first slabbed home that was swept. That second slabbed home, or those two slab brick homes, were to the northeast of Cason, right there on 49.
I'm going
Is
to
when that
check.
tornado.
I want to check and make sure of the time here. That was 6:49. So let me move a little bit ahead. 6:40. So there's
There it
your,
is.
yeah. So
There's your debris. Matter of fact, David, zoom in on that, and I'm going to show you where we shot that video. I don't know if it'll show it or populate it, but there's a Mount Moriah church that actually populates on the radar up there, and it may show up, it may not, but that's you can
Mount
see the blue,
Mitchell.
the deep blues there.
Yeah. South of Omaha.
So,
Yeah,
yep,
so when we talk about this, folks, it's a great teaching moment right here because we run through 3 or 4 products really. When it's hitting the fan, there's no reason to go through anymore really, especially if you can prove your point. And this was the way we were proving the point on Friday night was you got several ways to confirm that a tornado is out there. One is human, and do you trust all humans? I don't know. Sometimes I'm telling you, my career, I've had people call in and say, hey, there's a tornado out in my backyard. And 10 minutes later, oh, well, I forgot there's a smokestack back there. It doesn't move. I've had so many humans. You think you saw something, especially when you're revved up. So humans, okay. Law enforcement's the next step up. When law enforcement calls in, we normally know. We know who they are when they call it in, so they feel responsible for it. And they're not going to call in something that's ragged or a little fishy. And then we have confirmation from the radar. And sometimes you'll read that. It says confirmed by radar, which at that point, this is the first thing that I look at to see if there's something that is an anomaly in the graphic that we see. Now, all these products give us certain things. This one, notice that everything else except for this kind of looks the same. All this other trash over here looks the same. So the anomaly or the difference is this little ball right here in the middle, which is telling us that that is something different. That is something of a different size, shape, and velocity that's moving through the atmosphere. And so it's going to be debris. Now, Brett, you can help me out with this because I've always wanted to have the radar in front of me, see the drop on the CC product and go, the pixels on there, it's 6 pixels wide. It's about a mile, but is it really? And what is it? Because you can't really tell. Now, there's a high DBZ there in the blue, but what do you think that right there is? Now, because of the video you shot, does this tell you this is maybe structurally some building material?
absolutely, David. What you can see, what's so interesting about this radar image in particular, is the correlation coefficient or the CC product there. We're looking for those drops, and they show basically different objects, different sized objects they're telling the radar that that is not a hydrometer. Hydrometers are raindrops or hailstones that we look at. Raindrops pretty well have a specific type of shape. These objects that the radar sees that are anomalies or lower values of correlation coefficient, they are either pieces of wood, bricks. You can get leaves or
Yeah.
trees inside of a tornado, and that also shows up as an anomaly there. Basically, on this graphic, all of that light pink right there that you're seeing, that's rain. Up near the core there, where you've got some oranges and yellows, that may be some hail. But when you get a deep signal like that, co-located with a base reflectivity that's high, as well as those gate to gate velocity couplets that we look at, it's not a one product, services everything, you've got to co-locate. And when that happens, that gives you a very good idea that we're dealing with something on the ground that is churning up things that are not raindrops. So we're looking at debris, whether it be trees, homes, cars, you name it. It could be anything that's being lofted at that point.
Yep, and it all matched up really, really well with all the other data. I mean, if you change products there, it all matched up right on top of each other, stacked upon each other. So that's true. That's one that went through just near Cason there in the early part of the evening. That was about 6:30. But if you notice, if I back on out, we have lots of other spin that's ongoing. Another one that was coming out of Gilmore at that time, which was a little broad there for a little while, but still, you can tell that whole thing was spinning there very well. Became a little bit more pixel to pixel around Lone Star at that point, but then lifted off to the northeast. Brett, some of these spins, some of these tornadoes were 10 miles behind each other. I mean, in the training echoes, we get these spins that, even though maybe we didn't get them confirmed as tornadoes, they were certainly funnels or some localized vortices that were taking place within this whole line.
Yeah, there was a ton of spin in the atmosphere, Dave. And as we got into the evening hours, as the sun started to set, that's when we really started to see these couplets take off, or see that wind shear just increase. That Cason storm that we were just talking about is the same tornado. It tracked all the way up there to New Boston. That's the same storm that we captured there along the interstate. You can see it there. I'll tell you what, zoom in there on the New Boston storm. So drop it back just a couple frames there, David, if you can. I want to explain something right there. So right there, several research meteorologists were watching this event unfold because there were a couple of things that we were really interested to see. One of them was, how quickly do these storms go linear? We did not see that happen very fast, which was an ominous sign. Some of our global modeling said that these storms would go more linear in a faster manner. Our CAMs, or our convection allowing models, which are our short term model guidance products, they said not so fast. Don't think so. Think this could be a really decent tornado event. And they started showing some of these signals with the shear, the instability being placed. And then one of the products that's new, relatively new over the last couple of years, is updraft helicity. So those updraft helicity components were showing streaks. They were showing streaks that sometimes indicate supercells in the area that are running a course and they're rotating. Sometimes that can indicate tornadoes. So they were very spot on with those updraft helicity streaks in this instance. They're not always that way, but this tornado was analyzed south of New Boston. And one of the things that we see from research is, when we see these debris signatures, we don't only see the debris, but we can look at a 3D volume scan and see how high that debris actually goes. Debris was shot to almost 30,000 feet with that tornado just southwest of New Boston. And it was showing a rotational velocity, or a gate to gate signature that is in the rotating, of 80 plus knots. Typically, from analogs, basically past events that have those type of values, those are very indicative of EF4 type tornadoes. Now, I'm not sure that we're going to see that type of a rating here. And also, as you see that, saw that big blow up in the CC there, co-located. Well, it also fans out as it gets to the northeast and the tornado begins to dissipate. That's what we call debris fallout. As it goes up, see that fallout? It's not as deep, but you can see that stuff spread out. That's actually pieces that were brought into the atmosphere by the tornado that are falling out well to the north. David's marking that there on the radar imagery for you, just to kind of show you what we're looking at. That's the tornado sucking it up into the updraft, and up in the forward flank, it's so heavy, just like a hailstone. Once a hailstone gets so heavy and the updraft can't sustain it, it falls down from the atmosphere. So that's what happens with the debris. When the updraft can't sustain it anymore, it falls out, typically ahead of the storm.
All right, so let's move forward here a little bit. I think we sort of finished up your drone there, what I didn't botch, and I know you had a lot more stuff that you wanted to show there, so I apologize for that, but maybe you do it yourself next time. too much
Well,
pressure, man. I was
I think we
sweating.
covered it pretty well, though. I think the moral of the story here is that we had a very substantial tornado event across Texas. Several EF2 plus rated tornadoes there in Texas and southeast Oklahoma, and we've even had some tornado ratings, some confirmed ones in Arkansas later on as this all began to line out. But again, I'm very curious to see if this is a sign of things to come as we go forward throughout this winter season, because typically we see these type of events over in Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, not quite that far west. But yeah, there's my blind tornado
This,
there underneath your
I'm
head.
trying to figure out what this was. Oh yeah, that's the tornado that we couldn't really see that well.
Yeah,
Brett
yeah,
shot.
that I should have seen and I did not
Brett shot
see.
that a little
So
bit earlier. Okay, so the other thing that because we're 36 minutes into this right now, let's talk about what's going to go on now into the future. Because would you believe that we're still seeing some tropical weather possibilities that are showing up here? The National Hurricane Center now has a 90% prog now over the next 5 days for this thing that's out there into the Caribbean. Now it's north of Haiti, the Dominican Republic, and it's pretty easy to see the spin there, Brett. Everything is rotating around. It looks very non-tropical at the moment. It has a trailing cold front that's baroclinic in nature, but I'm sure under the center now we're deriving our energy out of the warm water temperatures that are still shown there in the eastern portions of the Bahamas and north of Puerto Rico. But that's the latest in the satellite imagery going northward. And again, I know you go from chasing out west to chasing east and south again. Here you're going to end up with a trip down, it looks like, pretty far to the south.
David, it certainly looks that way. Looking at satellite tonight, that really has a subtropical type look to it. There's a lot of shear there right now. Little bit of, you see all those thunderstorm tops being blown off toward the north and east, but that's going to change. We're going to see this really organize, and there's some blocking that's going to occur to the north of it due to the system that's been pulling out recently. We're going to see this likely move north for the next day or so, but we're going to begin to see a bend toward the west. There's quite a high probability that this thing begins to get its act together east of the Bahamas, and then we start seeing that move toward the west. And you see there's a cold front there that's located back across Louisiana, Mississippi, southeast Texas. Eventually, this is going to meet up with that front and turn off toward the northeast and go toward the northeast U.S.
Yeah, Gulf of Mexico at the moment. We still got some broken cloud cover there. Had a few blow up right there. Thunderstorms still hanging around the tail end of the old front that didn't really go that far down to the south. So we're seeing it hung up there along the Gulf Coast. So a few thunderstorms around Houston, or that's just the crowd getting pretty happy again for tonight because there's some carryover. But anyway, we're tracking the tropics here. We've been doing so for the better part of a couple of 3-4 months now as we've gotten into it. And we'll just talk first of all, this is one of the hurricane models here, Brett, the WRF, and it finally filled in. This is from 12Z. I can probably pull up the 18Z and we'll verify this in just a few moments. But if I put this into motion, you can see again it's a westward movement. I have to tell you that because the Bahamas are barely beginning to show up into the graphic just at this point. But as we move along, we're looking at 3 a.m., 9 a.m. Let me pause it here for a second. And this is noon coming up on Wednesday now when we're just east, if you will, of Fort Lauderdale, somewhere in between there and Cape Canaveral, sitting out there kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. A little dry air looks to be coming in on the south side. But nonetheless, here we go. Doesn't look huge at this point. But it doesn't take huge in order to disrupt human life and activity.
Well, Dave, the one thing about it is it's not super strong there, but there's some compression taking place. As we talked about a little bit ago, there's going to be a frontal boundary that starts to move into the area. Last month, when we dealt with Ian, well, late September, when we dealt with Ian, Ian made landfall just before a troughing axis really started to shear it apart. And I kind of think that's how this is going to go down. It's not going to be as strong as Ian. I don't see another Ian in any capacity. However, what I do see could be a potentially pretty large wind field of onshore flow. And there's already discussion of coastal flood watches and storm
Yeah.
surge watches going up as early as tomorrow, because look how widespread those winds are there. They are all the way up the Florida coastline, and they even stretch further north up into the Carolinas. So there's going to be quite a bit of chop there off the East Coast, even prior to any kind of landfall. So there's going to be big impacts, mainly to the north of the center. There'll be some to the south, but that offshore flow is going to help those areas, maybe south of Miami down into the Keys. Northern sides of the Keys could even get some rough chop because of that cyclonic flow. But up north of Miami, from Miami north, really, it looks like that could be a very problematic thing with some coastal flooding, heavy rain, and even some spin up tornadoes.
He was, yeah. I think that's definitely one of the things I think that we'll be talking about is tornadoes, the activity that comes along with this, perhaps as it moves on further and further to the east over time. But nonetheless, that's what the situation looks like there at the moment. Let me put this into motion a little bit further to show you as that moves on further to the west. There is a somewhat of a landfall around West Palm Beach that tries to show up there. You're looking at the winds at 850 millibars actually that are coming in near the surface. I mean, if they come down to the surface, that'd be pretty close. But the winds there, they're going to be the greatest into the brighter colors off to the northern side of the low pressure. And quite typically, the side that is parallel to the coast on the right side of a low pressure center is the one that has the highest winds that would be taking place. And as you can see, that comes on shore. I paused it there for a moment, but it's going to be coming on shore somewhere and moving near Lake Okeechobee if this is the case. If this is a scenario coming across Okeechobee and making its way, what? Back out into the Gulf of Mexico? That'd be crazy. That'd be whack. And it's, got 975 millibars on it at that point. So you're getting close to being a hurricane at 975.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I don't doubt that we could see a Category 1, maybe even a weaker type of Category 2. But the thing is, and what I've learned being on these systems is a strengthening system always looks worse than a weakening one at landfall. You can get a weakening Category 3 versus a strengthening Category 1. And to me, the Cat 1 looks worse because it's actually intensifying all the way up to that landfall phase. So
Gotcha.
that's something we're going to be watching, and it comes across again. If it comes all the way across Florida and then reemerges out into the Gulf, I know the forecast modeling shows it beginning to recurve and bend back up into the Big Bend area and then ejecting off to the north and east at some point. But again, you've got to keep that in mind because look at that Panama City Beach, Mexico Beach, Apalachicola, the Big Bend area. If that happens, you're going to deal with some wind, rain, potentially tornadic activity, and then that's onshore flow. So there's going to be some storm surge involved up in that area too. So we're going to have to watch this as we go through the next several days to just see exactly what the forecast models want to do with it. As you can see there on that, I believe those are the spaghetti plots.
Those are the sketties.
Yeah. You can see that there's a very good agreement in the bend to the left and bringing it into Florida. But what exactly happens after that? Does it continue to the Gulf or does it recurve as it gets over the peninsula?
Yeah, there's only kind of an outlier there. Well, it went too far, but there was the outlier in the spaghettis is the WFI, which goes way to the left, and kind of everything else at that point was Central Florida, and then did a jet off to the northeast as it got caught up into the southwesterlies again and turned subtropical, but. Nonetheless, anywhere around. Now, here's the thing, folks. Now, like Ian, when Ian came in, I was talking to people who were going down to the Gulf Coast. A lot of people from the southeast go down on the Florida Panhandle, somewhere on the western Florida Panhandle, and you still can. This is a situation where it's not going to blow out the entire state of Florida. If this takes place, to the west side of this, it looks to be very, very dry. Frontal boundary will be coming through, but would be very dry, and it's the right side of this that would be seeing really all of the effects of the weather, the wane, and the wind, the wind and the rain, and everything else. The coastal flooding Brett was talking about, that's most likely going to be on the right side of this as well, because it'd be an offshore situation down in South Florida at this point. But that's what it looks like as far as the conglomeration. That's a bunch of the models, spaghetti models, because they do look like noodles. And so, Brett, November the 1st, we're only downslope, if you will, or what the calendar says we're supposed to have as far as hurricanes and tropical storms go, and we're right at the edge of that. Being down at the edge of that, it is a slow zoom for anticipation purposes, but yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at. And again, the HWRF, which is another tropical model, sort of does the same thing. I'll kick this into high motion here a little bit just to show you. It comes over here to the coast again and is sitting very near where the HMON was.
Yeah, I mean it's very similar in terms of track. I think in the short range, the 2-day range, I think we're looking pretty good in terms of track. Everything suggests that Florida has problems from the system. There's a lot of things that are going to be going on this week too that are also going to cause implications for this system. This is a bad time for the system to be going on. We're going to have to see what kind of watches and warnings that we see over the next 24, 36 hours, because we're not far. If you look at the modeling, we're talking about a landfall possibly by Wednesday, Thursday timeframe. So, we're very close already in terms of that. It's going to be a developing situation as we go forward, a rapidly developing one at that.
I guess my question is, why aren't you there already?
Well, I'll
Because
be
you need to
leaving
be on here
most
with me.
likely tomorrow.
Yeah.
Most likely tomorrow I'll be leaving. So we're planning on either leaving tomorrow in the afternoon or Tuesday morning.
So again, I want to look at the GFS here real quick with you to talk about this, because this is it coming in. This is the anomaly. I just threw up the normalized anomaly on the as far as the barometric pressure goes, and you can see again the movement coming in. This is the GFS. I mean, it just doesn't get much better in agreement as far as the models go. There's 3 of them in a row that have pegged this to come in down there into South Florida, move across the Florida Peninsula, come somewhere out into Tampa. And now the GFS does not go back out of the open water again, but then jets on off to the northeast out of Jacksonville and back out over the open water again, and really doesn't have it. I think the lowest pressure I could find with it was like 979.
Yeah, but for this time of the year, that's pretty strong. That's about as strong as you're going to see once we, eclipse November. I think one of the analogs for this system that was really crazy to see was Hurricane Kate, 1985. And I think that came in as a Cat 3, which was really abnormal for this late in the year.
So we had Hurricane Kate and Elena. I was there. I was in school at Florida State. First 2 storms I reported on as a television reporter for ABC, and I was down at St. Mark's, Florida. There's a lighthouse down there at St. Mark's, and I did my first live shot down there. Both of those are the first 2 hurricanes I had ever been through. Hurricane Frederick in '69 was a part of my heritage, but something I'd heard about a lot along the Gulf Coast. But that was one of the situations. There was Hurricane Kate came in. We lost power, electricity for about 2 months out of that whole thing where I lived there in Tallahassee. But we had an unprecedented amount of tornado warnings that occurred during that system too, that caused a lot of the power outages. And that was at a time when we really didn't have good radar yet, Brad. And so I think I was working off of 3 colors, actually, at that point, a 3-color radar when that happened. I think I said 60. Let's see, that was 85, wasn't it? Kate was 85.
Yeah, it's bad for me to say this. Kate, I think, made landfall 2 days after I was born, but it was in the Gulf in November the 19th. I think it made landfall the 21st. So, yeah, Kate was interesting.
Yeah.
But
I think I said 69. Frederick was 79. It was, see, I'm
Frederick was 79. That one's the one that came up to the Alabama coastline there in Mobile Bay and in that area that did quite a bit of damage. And I think the last storm that I can remember that was really impactful late October, early November, I think that was Zeta. You remember we went through the whole list, and I think it was 2020, right? Went through the whole list, and then we dealt with Zeta that came up into Louisiana and came across central Alabama and did just catastrophic type damage with wind. It was moving at 30 miles an hour, getting sheared to death, but we had over 300,000 power outages. I was out of power for 7 days. So here in Talladega County, and again, these storms can be impactful, especially as they merge up with trough axis. Those wind fields really expand, and you start seeing winds mix down the surface and cause problems.
So, okay, looking at all the, if you got any questions we can answer, we got about 10 more minutes here if we stay true to our 1 hour being on the air, because let's tout again the fact that we're going to be doing, we've been doing live coverage over the past week or so, but we didn't really advertise it that much, really for about a month now. We haven't advertised it that much because there were some things we wanted to do to make sure that we were worthy at the time, but now we've got some of the kinks worked out here. We want to be taking questions of yours. We want to have interactivity here, by the way, and we'll be doing more of that. You're not going to believe what we're going to do when it comes to that. I haven't even told Brett yet. He's like, what are we going to be doing with that? But we're going to be doing some cool stuff coming up when it comes to that. We've got Heath Lawler involved. He's helping us out graphically with some of the things that are going on. If you'd like to help out in some way or another, please send us a comment or a message, and we'll try to do that about some of the information that you want. I know we did it live the other day, Brett, and it was really, I enjoy answering questions for people who have honest-to-goodness questions about what may be happening to them or some neighbor or somebody, a relative that lives nearby.
Totally agree, David. Totally agree. So I've got some. Let's see. I'm looking through here now. Carl Morgan. Any warnings? Right now, we do not have any type of warnings, watches, advisories in effect. It looks like the Hurricane Center is really just monitoring for this to organize a little bit better. What I can tell you is I got a little bit of insider information earlier. The aircraft hurricane hunters, the reconnaissance guys that we watch that go and fly into these storms, they have been in the Pacific Northwest covering the atmospheric river situation, and they have now been put on an unassigned mission to go back to Biloxi. So that tells me that they're likely going to start scheduling flights down there into the Bahamas, into the eastern or the western Atlantic for this storm.
Okay.
David, here, I'm gonna let you answer this one from
That's the
Brandon
Euro, by the
Maestro.
way. This is the Euro from 18Z. It's not the new one. It won't come out till after 2 o'clock. But look again, I mean, the congruency of all the modeling as to where this thing is going is pretty much, right on it. And I think about it's all within 6 hours. I think they all are. And this is 6 hours. This is 3 o'clock on Thursday morning. Wednesday, Thursday is the time frame for this thing coming on shore. Yes.
Right. So here's a question we got from Brandon. Could it maybe come further west? Maybe Mobile. I'll let you take that one.
Again, what we were looking at a little bit earlier, and let me just call them back up again. If while we're sitting here, I'll just do this, and this is the tracks that are likely according to the models, and this is, I think, the newest one that I could find. You see, the westwardmost track does not really get into the Gulf of Mexico that much. This was showing you, I don't know, about 12 or 14 different spaghetti models there. And at this point, I don't see a westward sort of a situation that would go past Apalachicola. Now, a lot can happen. We're talking about something that really doesn't have a center just yet. So the modeling doesn't have anything to initialize that well over. It's still incredible at how well the models do, but until there's a true center, it's kind of like it's kind of like being 3 or 4 days out when you're talking about severe weather coming into the United States, but the low is still out over the Pacific. We don't have stations out there over the Pacific to give us the initialization points that are super accurate. So until it gets on shore, we really don't have great data when you go beyond 3 or 4 days like that. Well, kind of the same situation here. You see the dots that originate, they're different origination dots. The two that are up in the upper right-hand side of the screen right there, they're far away from the several that are down there at the bottom, so they don't really initialize even at the same time, and that's why those go off to the northwest, or excuse me, to the northeast, because they're caught up more into the southwesterlies. And then the rest of it has more of a northerly initialization to it when it all really begins to start, and those numbers go in just a little bit differently into the modeling that does occur. But I would say right now, you typically would stay in the middle of what you see if you just kind of squint, and the middle would be right up the center of Florida at this point, with a rapid right turn when it gets into the southwesterlies ahead of our cool front.
Right, I agree. Obviously, you never say never, but the likelihood of that is probably as close to zero as you can get. I think we're pretty close to being on the right track here, because we've got a blocking cold front with a trough. Axis is going to eject out again. It gets caught up in those southwesterlies. It has to turn at some point. So, next question, David. Henry says, would this system bring any rain to areas south of Atlanta?
South of Atlanta.
I would say that more than likely there's going to be some rain in southeast Georgia with the system as it begins to turn up. It's going to be right side dominated. Those coastal areas of Georgia, Savannah, down the coastline there all the way to Jacksonville, Florida. Coastal flooding is going to be quite a hazard too, and you're going to deal with those outer bands as this system begins to move in toward the coastline. But in terms of rainfall totals, I think David is actually pulling up some of the reflectivity charts here based on the modeling. We can look at areas in southeast Georgia, southeast of Atlanta.
Yeah. Let
Take
me
a
move
look
forward with
here.
this. This is the GFS again, and I need a bigger picture here. So if you move that forward again, we're most likely going to see just not much happening west of the actual low center. In fact, our next rain doesn't really come through until the front does. So
Right.
let me back out of this to be a little bit wider here.
I think that's our second front. I think this initial front that picks up the tropical system is actually pretty dry in the southeast until you get really from about Macon, Georgia, onto the east with the system itself. You know, you've got that front. It's the one that caused all the tornadic activity actually is locked up right now. That's what's sitting over Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee right now, and that's what's kind of going to be our blocking mechanism here for this tropical system.
Yeah, so here's here again. This is going to be on Thursday morning. I'm sorry I don't have the time up there for you, but you can see it gets blocked. Everything from it looks like Tallahassee actually is about the westward boundary of all this as it comes on shore. Jacksonville gets a ton of rainfall. You're going to get a bunch of rain over in that area there specifically, and all the way up to South Carolina. But it really doesn't feel like or look like at this point much of that's going to be further on to the east at all. Let me sort of put in the total
Or
precipitation.
to the west there.
Excuse me, to the west. Let me put in the total precipitation. And again, the majority of it, again, is going to be right in through here. I need to back out of my shot here, but
Yeah, let me
what
see
is
if I got
that? What
any.
are we watching? What is?
Okay,
Oh,
that's that. That's that
it's
video.
a video. Yeah, it's a video
Yeah,
of Brett. I know what it is, but I'm just
you know exactly what
messing,
it is.
just messing with you.
You're jerking with me there a little bit, Dave.
So anyway, what else have we got? What else can we help with?
Oh, let's see what else we got here. I'm looking for more questions. Will the remnants of Lisa combine with this system?
Nah,
Nah, where's Lisa?
down there in the bay of Campeche, it was sort of
Okay. That's
still
kind of
visible.
yeah, it's kind of dead down there. I don't think there's really any convection or anything with it right now. What kind of wind speeds are we looking at in West Palm Beach? So if this system were to move into West Palm, we could be dealing with tropical storm force winds maybe as early as later Wednesday. And depending on the strength of the system, you could see some hurricane force winds. I wouldn't be surprised if we could see the system, given the environment, winds could, get up 80, 90 miles an hour sustained, gust a little over 100 possibly. Um, so, I mean, I think that's kind of the ceiling. I think that's a high ceiling for it. It could make landfall as a tropical storm. Again, it really depends on the merger with the front too. So that the timing is going to be key. And then yes, most definitely, because you see how big that almost looks subtropical. That looks like
Well,
what we
it
used to
does look
call
subtropical. I mean, it's got a cold front out the bottom of it. Let's be
right.
honest.
Look at it. It looks like a baroclinic leaf you would see when you get a big either a nor'easter or a blizzard down in the deep south that flies up the east coast or something like that.
What we're talking about is the two. What's the difference between a subtropical storm and a tropical situation? Is where the energy is derived from in a low pressure center. If it is subtropical, then it's the energy derived for a storm comes from the fact that you have a differing in temperatures that is causing that gradient in temperatures is where that energy comes from. In this case, a tropical low pressure center derives its energy out of what comes in from the sea surface, latent heat that comes in and is rising up through the column of air and then exhausted out the top by an anticyclone. Right here, we're actually seeing this thing fed down from the south, which sort of looks like a little cold front down here like this, if you will. The whole thing is rotating. Pretty good, easy to see that it's rotating, but it's very broad at the moment as well. The only thing I see going that way is a little bit of cloud cover down in here. The thunderstorms that are blowing up are right here on this eastern side of it. And other than that, it's just a thing. And it goes, I mean, that moisture plume is reaching out way down here into Costa Rica.
Exactly, and that's another reason I think it's going to be important to get the hurricane hunters in there because For this to be classified as a tropical system, we're going to have to see a lower level center. We're looking in the mid levels there, and we're going to have to see a lower level center. And you can see that's water vapor loop. That is a huge tongue of dry air, again, showing that we've got a more subtropical type system at the moment. Probably a cooler core versus a warm core. Tropical systems are pretty much warm from the top down, and they explode and expand overnight due to latent heat release, where the atmosphere is basically going to be cooler than the sea surface temperature around it. So it allows that warm air to rise straight off the sea surface, and it blows up. This is actually likely a cooler core system right now. And our sea surface temperatures are starting to drop some because we're getting to the time of the year where we don't have, as much radiation from the sun during the day. As we call it diurnal heating. We don't have quite as much of that taking place. So again, we're going to deal with some sort of a system, a cyclone this week. Tropical, non-tropical, we'll see. The impacts are going to be the same. You're going to see a lot of coastal flooding, storm surge elements along the East Coast. That's what we're going to deal with. No
My
doubt.
favorite buoy is online tonight. 41049 is out there. I don't see what's really cool, folks. Is you ought to go. It's called Dollar Buoy. In the middle of the day, if you want to call a buoy, you can dial the buoy. You can call them, and they'll send you a photograph of the buoy, the picture that the buoy took. Sometimes it's like only 30 minutes old. It sends you a photograph from out there in the middle of the ocean, and it's there, but you can't see it because it's dark, obviously. But here's some of the data coming in with the buoy data at the moment. The air temperature is 76 degrees. The sea surface temperature is 80. First time in a long, long time the air temperature has been colder than the water temperature. With a dew point of 71 degrees, and the barometric pressure is kind of hanging there. 30-mile-per-hour wind gust, and this is just off to the north of what might be the center. There is a buoy right there that's really close to the center, though, that says we've got virtually no wind, a gust to 6, and the air temperature is 75. But the sea surface temperatures are still warm. We're at 82 here, Brett, and I think this is going to be not that far away from what looks to be the center. There's the buoy. You're talking about, what, 195? If that's the center, even. I think this is thunderstorms from the DR. These are land driven that are probably diurnal as well. And if the center is out here trying to do its thing, it's going to be pretty close to this buoy. Maybe because there's no wind, maybe it's over the buoy.
Yeah, it could be. Those southwest winds, as they come over the DR, there's some big mountains there. So you're dealing with some upslope. Your thunderstorms are developing there coming off the north side of the DR. So that makes total sense. That's really good look there. You can kind of see maybe just to the southwest of that buoy, there's a little bit of curvature in those little clouds right there forming. So it's close. It's going to be really, really close to where that buoy location is. Yep, right in there.
Let's see.
You can kind of see that.
A little bit.
See that?
A little bit, yeah.
Just a little.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what they find as they, get out there and investigate that. So let's see if we got anything else.
17.
Okay, here's actually a decent question from Antoine. Do you think the ridge could be
does Antoine not
stronger?
normally ask decent questions? Did you just pick on Antoine?
No,
I'm
just
actually a
saying
decent
this
question from Antoine.
This is a decent question in general. Do you think the ridge could be stronger and push the storm a little more to the south?
I suppose so, but look, when I start adding my intuition into this, it goes wrong. I look at, a lot of this is about gut, and I think I'm a pretty good forecaster. I really do. I've been doing it for a long, long time, though, and I've learned some stuff that in time that I don't believe in anymore, and some stuff I still believe in. I believe in biases. I watch these models. Brett and I, you would not believe how geeky we are. There's really nobody I've ever met that's as geeky as Brett Adair and myself. We're, first of all, the biggest Atlanta Braves fans you've ever met. I mean,
Yes.
pitch by pitch, we're texting. And secondly, if anything changes remotely, and I don't care what time it is, if it's 2 or 3 in the morning, Brett and I are going to text each other and go, "Did you see?" Now, Brett has a little bit of an ego, so he's going to say, "I already saw that." He's going to write me back really quick. And I know when I'm probably just stomping on his little parade, because he probably was asleep or eating.
Probably.
He does one of the two a lot. So, yes, we're total geeks when it comes to this. But to answer your question about the high pressure, I don't go against that much confidence in the dozen or so pathways that have been drawn by these models in the spaghetti plot. So I have no reason to think to overthink at this point than just go with that. That's my
Right.
opinion. Brett, give yours.
I agree. I think so. We're going to wait on Kermit and Miss Piggy to get out there and do some analysis. They're going to. So let me give you a little bit of an introduction to the NOAA hurricane hunters. What they're going to do is you have people that run low level reconnaissance missions. So they're going to be out there looking for a low level center on this storm because we got to have that for it to be any type of tropical or subtropical storm in nature. And you also have groups that are going to do the upper level missions. So they're going to fly all around this envelope, this leaf, this shear structure, and look at the upper level conditions. They're going to look at the strength of the ridge. They're going to look at the, dry air. They're going to drop tons of sondes. It's going to give us a profile of the atmosphere all the way around this thing. And what that's going to do is all that data is going to get ingested in the computer models. So if we see any shifts in the modeling, my expectation would be after we start seeing some of those missions going out there, because that's a lot of additional data. As David mentioned, we don't have upper air stations out over the water like we do, on land. So we're not getting balloons launched like the Weather Service offices are doing. What we're doing is we're getting data from Hurricane Hunter aircraft when it is over top of the storm and it goes into the modelings direct. So I think if we're going to see any kind of shift again, it's going to be after we get some of that data ingested into our computer models. But right now, the models are pretty locked in on a bend back to the west, somewhere between Miami and West Palm Beach.
Yeah, there's no reason to go against that at this point. So you just kind of have to go with it, and that's what it is for this moment. European was on it too. Normally the European, you know how the Europeans are. You've seen the Ryder Cup. It's all very competitive, and so at this point, they're pretty much on the same note. Nobody's really changing anything as far as the modeling goes. European comes out a little bit later, and there are times I'm a European guy for a while because it did so well on an event before, and so that's how we talk about modeling. Brett and I do. Back in '93, March the 13th of '93, it was called the ETA back then, but the NAM saved my life. I was a weather guy in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and it was screaming, 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 and I was too dumb not to say exactly what the model said. It was the only time I can really remember where it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It gave me credibility because I went really high with the snow number, but only because the model said so. There were smarter people who said, you don't do that, Dave, because you just don't do that. Yeah, I mean, it was a newspaper article. About 4 days in advance, the ADA said 15, 16 inches. The ADA had that in there. And so I went about 80%. I was known for going 80% of what it said, and I went like 80%. Well, the next day, the Chattanooga Times newspaper comes out, and it's a caricature. It's a drawing. This is back when they used to do drawings of you. The editor would have a person draw you up, and they did a drawing of me sitting on a bench by myself feeding the pigeons. And it was like what's this guy talking about? He's going to end up being all alone. And I did end up being all alone, but that was for other reasons. And so, it is what it is, Brett. But I still, when it comes to winter stuff, I still love to look at the NAM, and I still, if it keeps going, it keeps winning, I'll stick with it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't go against something that's been performing very well. Which again, I was the first one to tell you the other day, the tornado event. The NAM did really good, and you kicked me to the curb and stomped on me a little bit over that because I'm not typically paying too much attention to some of the newer NAM stuff. But you got to go with, if there's a consensus, you got to go with it, and if it's consistent, that's another thing you really got to look at there. So
yeah.
Let's see, what else do we got? There was a couple of other little questions here. Earth Null School is an excellent global modeling site.
I was just talking about that.
I think that shows all those. It's like windy
Streamlines.
almost. It shows, yeah, the wind streamlines. That's a really good site. We use that quite a bit. Um,
Yeah.
David's used that a bunch and
It's a
sent me a
great
lot of
tool.
stuff.
I don't know if I can show it on the air or not, but it's a great tool for teaching because and I don't know how to really, I guess, make the model work. I know how to find current conditions, but yeah, it's a cool little site, and I play with it a lot because you can just check all over the. Kind of reminds me of what was that thing that I had, the big globe that I had, Brett, at the. Forget it. I had a globe. What was it? Where you looked at the Earth at the Science Center down in Birmingham.
Oh, at the McWayne
At the
Science Center
McWayne
down here.
Center, we had a globe
Yeah.
there that was 6 foot wide, and I used to be able to show all the models on that thing. I helped bring that in, by the way, to the McWayne Center, and then I could put all the modeling on it, and you could see the weather all across the globe. It's a great teaching tool. We used to have people there who would come in and watch teach, and there was going to be a hologram of me outside there, and I just didn't make it that long. Be able to see that happen.
Yeah, and it's it's that if you're ever in Birmingham, there's still a little venue there inside the Science Center that's got some weather stuff. It's not quite what it used to be though. It used to be
I
really
used to
nice
teach
back in the
classes
heyday.
there. I taught classes there for Thursdays and Fridays for a long, long time. And schools would come by and, phew, I'm hot. I'm going through the change. No,
Well,
the
aren't we
time
all in
changed.
some
The time
case?
changed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I know, right?
because we went lost a little
Well,
bit.
is there anything else we want to kind of show just to kind of close out here, guys? We said we were going to be on an hour. We've been on about 70 minutes now, so we've been a good hour and 10 minutes in. But if you've got any more questions, I'm going to leave the floor open here for a couple of minutes, and then we'll wrap it up. I'll give you a final thought. David will do the same, and we'll go from there. One thing we're going to give you is Radar Omega is an application that we've both been using quite a bit lately. We're doing some stuff with their product that's going to be relaunching here soon. Radar Omega TV, great tool. I was live within the application the other day. You can kind of follow my GPS position along, and when I'm within the app and streaming, and I'll be down on the coast in Florida this week with this storm, so you'll be able to see me live within the app there, and obviously we'll be on the YouTube channel as well. Let's see.
That's going to be cool, by the way. And let's go ahead and give the guy a shout out, Drew Richards, and the folks there at Radar Omega. I used another app for many, many years, and I'm the kind of guy that when I get used to something, I don't change. And but neither did the app I was using; it never changed. So I do like new, innovative stuff. I like for people to push things a little bit further and further. And then I got this app, and talked to Drew. Drew used to be a little. Drew was he's a little groupie, wasn't he, Brad? I mean, Drew used to follow me around. He's been on my Facebook. He writes some stuff every once in a while. But Drew knew a little bit about my career from Birmingham when I started down there. I was in Birmingham for 10 years, Chattanooga for 12 years. I did the weather there as well. And so I got with Drew, super sweet guy. And he's working so hard. He actually needs a day off. If his boss is listening tonight, Don, he needs a day off. But Drew has been working so hard on getting us, and we've got ideas. Brett and I do. We've had these ideas for many, many years, and he hasn't said no yet. Now, he hasn't done any of them, but he hasn't said no yet. So, Drew, we're real excited about what we're doing here. He's got this app has the means to do so much stuff. I'm telling you, if I had it 10 years ago, I would have made my whole everything that I did on television, on TV, I would have used this one app for that because it's got it all. And they've been very kind to put it all out before it's perfected, so you can't gripe about it. But it's Radar Omega. Go check them out. Really nice site. So far, I don't have any trouble with it at all. You can get all the radar sites across the country immediately if you want them. I don't. All the models are there. Just tweaking a few things, and Brett and I are helping with that, and we're really super excited to do that.
Yeah, no doubt. And here really, really, really soon, there is going to be an update to this application that we
Oh yeah.
can't really talk about yet in terms of the features, but I promise you it's going to knock your socks off probably in a month or near the first of the year. We're looking at the update, and there's going to be some things that we're going to have at our disposal in the coming months, hopefully by severe weather season, that allow us to do this live gig and really turn the heat up on some folks.
There's I don't know if you've even seen it, Brett. There's a button in the app, and it's called "Watch Brett Eat Breakfast." It's so cool. I mean, it's
Ah,
really been
yes.
so nice. I've been demoing it here, alpha channeling it for a while, and
Right.
that plus all the other additions that are going on it are just going to be excellent. You're going to love it. And I don't know if you know this. Some of you may know this, but I about a year ago I found a chicken, a Rhode Island red chicken, and she was caught in a snowstorm, and I saved her life, and she's been grateful ever since. But
Yep.
anyway, she has been on with me a couple times, and she actually does well at forecasting. And you're going, how? How does she do well? What does she do? Well, it's on the app, and I can't really talk that much about it at this point. But she uses her little fingers. Well, I can't even tell you about it. I
Uh,
can't because it's so secret at this moment. I don't want anybody to copy it because there are a lot of copycats out there on the
You're
internet.
you're literally going to get
But
to watch David pet his chicken to get a forecast. Literally. And the chicken, he can't go into detail what she's going to tell him and how she's going
yeah,
to tell him, but you will see it live
it's very cool.
in the app.
It's very cool. She's actually a really cool chicken, and so we'll be bringing her on from time to time. I don't know if Brett's got a gadget or any kind of. You can bring Heath on, I guess. Heath can be your little thing.
I can, and we can then dispose of. We've got this thing when we chase storms. I always keep a bag of trolley gummy worms with me, and
Yeah,
that's tornado bait. We
yeah,
throw them out,
yeah.
and typically when we do that, we literally almost die and get hit or something. I mean,
Yeah,
we call the tornadoes in. I don't have like a big bullhorn or anything that I can use to get them in, so we use gummy worms. I mean, they seem to like it.
it will probably work. I feel pretty good about all that. I mean, and so anyway, we just tooted their horn here, and I hope Drew is watching tonight. And Drew, thank you for everything that you do to help us be better and better. And again, you're going to be able to, you can watch us so many ways. We're going to have like a gazillion ways to watch here pretty soon. And let me promise you this. I'll make you this promise that you won't see when you go to YouTube. You're not going to see this thing that says we're all going to die tomorrow. Expect 40 feet of snow. You won't see that. That's not going to be our thumbnail. And it's not me. I like to be funny. I like to be silly, but I don't like to be inaccurate when it comes about something as serious as people's lives and the weather. I don't think there's any reason to have somebody click on you just because of something that you wrote. So you're going to see serious thumbnails from us. If you look at it and it says we're all dying tomorrow because there's going to be 18 feet of snow and 25 tornadoes, that's not us. That's somebody else. So anyway, we're trying our best to do that because I take the weather seriously when it comes to keeping you and your family safe. Kind of like Brett. It's kind of like, if you go to the doctor and the doctor says, well, I've never done this before, but doctor, have you ever seen the inside of a chest? No, I haven't. Have you ever done one of these before? No, I haven't. Well, make sure that your weather guy has seen it and done it before you actually take information from them. Okay.
Yeah, again, these type of forecast situations where we can have a little bit of fun, and we're going to do that. We're going to interact. We're going to have a personality. We are not going to be the driest guys on the internet. I can tell you that. However, when it's time to be serious, we're going to get serious. And again, we got a tropical situation coming up, East Coast. That's a serious deal. So everybody needs to be paying attention. We'll be coming back on over the course of the next couple of days. I don't know exactly when we'll do a live. If you hit that subscribe button, I will be making community posts, and I will be putting information out there about lives a couple hours at least prior to these. And you can tune in when we give the latest information. And then as the storm gets going, David's going to be there in the studio doing some live coverage while I'm out in the field. We're going to be testing some even more stuff to really let you guys, see what we see. And also, try to be, talking one on one. David and I have done this for years. We've done this with a big network. We've done this back all the way to David's days here in Birmingham when I was just in a truck, a kid, trying to go get tornadoes. So, we're trying something on our own here.
We
The
probably don't
social
advise.
platforms.
Wait. We probably don't advise you to get a truck and your kid and go find tornadoes. But
No.
that's the way it happened at that point, I think.
No, I think my youngest stepson, I think, shot you some tornado video down in Tallapoosa County. He was 6, hanging out the back of my
Yeah.
Tahoe.
Yeah.
That wasn't really an advised move or anything, but it happened, and
Yeah.
that was my discretion. I don't advise anybody to do that. But on a real note, again, we're gonna expand upon this idea. We're really excited. We're glad that, again, like with the YouTube chat here, we're watching you send in information and chat with us live, and we're able to answer your questions as they come in. So this is pretty cool. One-on-one type interaction that you don't get when you're in the big TV world and you can't talk to the viewer directly. So
All right.
any advice or any suggestions, be sure to email them, Brett@livestormsmedia.com, and Dave and I'll go through them for these broadcasts, because we definitely want to get some input as to what you guys, information that's important to you and what really, gets your attention. So, for me, that's about all I got.
All right, guys, we appreciate you being with us. It's now 8:20 on Sunday evening, November the 6th. We're going to be joining you again throughout the week with the weather down into the eastern coast of the state of Florida, maybe even into the Gulf of Mexico and more. So hang with us. We appreciate you being with us tonight. Have a great night.
Thanks, guys.